What is going on, guys? In today's video, we're going to be comparing a $0 AI automation system to a $5,000 AI automation system to a $50,000 AI automation system that is like the absolute dream for any service-based business out there. With that being said, let's get into this right now. This is the trajectory. Essentially, with every single build, it's going to be exponentially crazier and more freaking cool. Now, just before we dive into this, I want to say that I priced this out at a fixed rate. There's tons of different ways that you could price a system out like this, but I just wanted to keep it simple for this particular video, just so that anyone watching this can get a good understanding of a couple things. First of all, what is like a reasonable price that you could offer here? And I kept it a bit on the lower end. Like personally, I would charge a lot more for these systems than what I'm showing here, but I wanted it to be something that anyone could get their foot in the door doing. And so what to price it out as. And the second thing is what are people actually freaking interested in? Like, apart from all the fluff and all the shiny objects out there, like, what are the things that will get business owners to take out their freaking wallet here and be like, hey, I want to give you my credit card. I want you to charge me because the value you're providing me with is so freaking insane that it'd be silly not to be doing that. And so for that reason, that is what we're talking about in this video. And we are going to start with the $1 project. Just before we do, guys, if you haven't done so already, I highly recommend taking a look at my school community that was launched a couple months ago, where essentially there's two purposes to it. It's to help people that are busy business owners automate up to 80% of their business. I'm just going to give you the exact blueprints that I use to automate my 7-figure business and remove myself from a job. And for those of you who want to start an AI automation agency, I'm going to give you a proven roadmap where you can find more leads than you know what to do with pretty much on day one. Let's get into this right now. Okay, so in this $1 automation system, what we can do is we can sign up for a free make.com account, which is free forever, 1,000 operations per month. And we can create a workflow just like this. Now, this is a new lead workflow so that essentially when somebody fills out a form on somebody's website, we're using a free form software, which is Google Forms up here. So when somebody fills this out, then it will start this particular workflow here and then enter them into a Google Sheet and send them off an email. Okay. And so that is in a nutshell the most basic automation that you could build out for pretty much free or $1 or sell for $1. Not sure you probably want to sell this for $1, but you can. Past that, what I want to talk about is this $5,000 AI automation system. Now, there's a lot of different $5,000 AI automation systems that you can sell, but in this particular example, we're going to be building on top of the past examples and we're going to be sticking to lead generation. So with that being said, let's talk about this $5,000 automated system. Now, first of all, I want to say that we're going to go through each item in this system, and we're also going to put a price tag to it. That price tag is just what I think could be a good price for you to charge. If you're absolutely brand new, maybe you want to charge a bit less and get your foot in the door. If you're more experienced, maybe you want to charge more because, well, maybe you don't want to sell it for this price. And so just keep that in mind and take it with a grain of salt. So first of all, let's talk about the top end of the funnel. We have leads that are entering into a particular CRM. So these could be, for example, in this system, leads that we generate through cold email outreach. So in this example here, we have a system, okay? This is what I use. What you'd be selling for $3,000 could be this. It could be way simpler than this as well. But in a nutshell, what we're doing is we're finding leads via Appify. So we're web scraping leads off of a site like Apollo or off of a site like Google Maps. And then we're adding them into our workflow here and sending them off cold emails. So I use instantly.ai. And essentially, this is what I'm using to send emails cold. So we're scraping all of these clients. We're getting that entire list automatically. We're entering them into freaking instantly.ai automatically, and then we're sending off those emails automatically too. I think this could win the Guinness World Record for longest page load speed I've ever witnessed in my entire freaking life. As I'm talking and complaining about this, it's still not freaking loading as I'm like hyping up instantly. Anyways, we're going to move on. That is crazy. And then, yeah, moving past that, you could also set up like, for example, other workflows too, if you wanted to. So maybe you have leads coming in inbound. Maybe they have like a SEO page, okay, for generating leads, and you want to have a form on that page. So for example, take my lead page here. Somebody fills out a form inquiring about AI automation services, and then we could automatically reply to these people, call them in 15 seconds, text them, email them, all that kind of stuff. So that's another component to this new leads cycle. However, that's obviously two ways that you can get leads, but the goal is still the same, essentially, in either instance, whether you're doing cold email outreach via scraping leads from Apollo and entering them into a workflow like this, or whether you're getting leads from SEO or some sort, you're going to be trying to get those people onto a particular sales call. That is the end goal in mind. And so with this, with a $5,000 build, and keep in mind, both of these additional projects are $1,000 each. But with the sales call here, you can build out like a sample sales call form. This is kind of like the template that I use. Obviously, this is just an example here. But this is kind of like what I built out. We have the main sales call form here. And then you can put in notes on the side. You can have a pricing calculator, client information, like their first name, last name, because a lot of the times you'll go through calls and you'll forget people's names and stuff like that. Concern handles, all that kind of stuff. But the main part about this is actually just this shiny little button here where when they click submit here, it's going to automatically generate and send off an invoice to a client via email. So they'd open up that email and they could literally just pay and sign an agreement immediately after the contract, after the sales call. And so that's really nice. You can automate this whole process automatically. And so at a very basic setup, $1,000. I would charge a lot more than that, but if you're doing like bare bones and you want your foot in the door, you could charge $1,000. Awesome. And then past this, right? So we've gotten leads, we've gotten them maybe from cold email or website visits into a sales call. The next thing is follow-up appointments, right? And this is kind of like the sales funnel when you think about it. And so it's nice to kind of sell this together as a package to clients because usually they don't want one isolated thing. They want everything together to work seamlessly. And so with appointments, you can use whatever software you want. It could be Calendly, it could be cal.com. You guys are probably familiar with that. So Calendly is the most popular software, obviously, out there doing this. But essentially what I like to use is okay, and that's also taking forever to load. I don't know what's going on right now. I like to use Go High Level. And again, you're welcome to use anything you want, but yeah, you'll have appointments being able to be booked. And the important thing about appointments being booked is that there's multiple life cycle stages that you want to automate for an appointment. So when somebody books a time here, you're probably going to want to notify them and drip out emails and text messages reminding them up until that appointment. So for example, 30 minutes before the call, you might want to text that person and be like, hey, I'm just letting you know, I'll give you a call in 30 minutes. Otherwise, they might forget and no-show. So that kind of stuff is really useful. And then past that, we have these like no-show cancellation or reschedule workflows as well that you could build into this. And you could charge like $1,000. Again, I would probably charge more. The only reason why I say 1,000 is because the initial setup takes a long time. But again, with all of this kind of stuff, once you've built it once, it's like copy, paste, done. It's like a couple minutes here and it's finished. But more or less with this kind of stuff, you can manage every single life cycle stage of an appointment. So when it's confirmed, you can drip out notifications. If somebody cancels that appointment, right? You can email them back and ask them, hey, can we schedule another appointment? If they no-show that appointment, meaning that they don't pick up the phone when you give them a call, you can send out messages again asking them to reschedule an appointment. And the logic behind it is that just because somebody didn't show up for the initial appointment doesn't mean they can't close at a later point in time. So it is important to follow through or follow up with these people because not everyone's going to close the first time. Now, the last thing I want to point out here in this $5,000 AI automation system, which is the second of third that we're going to be covering in this video, is we have contract signed workflows. What I mean by that is usually when you're sending off contracts and invoices, you want it to be a 2-in-1 document. So as soon as somebody signs, then they're prompted to pay. Unfortunately, not everyone that signs pays. Some people will drag their feet for months and months and months. And so what a good use case would be is to follow up with people that signed, but they didn't pay, and just gently remind them, hey, it would be great if you could just quickly take out your wallet and process that payment, and then we're good to go. And that's essentially, in a very nice way, what you want to say, right? And so for that reason, that is a $5,000 automation setup, all about lead generation and sales automation, right? So for $5,000, you could essentially help somebody automate their entire sales automation system, okay? And now let's take this one step further. Let's go into the last build here, where we're working our way up into the massive $50,000 build. Now, with this $50,000 build, it does include everything in this 5K build, but we're going to be, first of all, really ironing out all the kinks, building on top of it, and making it each one of these individual workflows fleshed out. And then we're going to be adding a ton of additional information on top of it as well. So let's kind of break into this. I'm going to go back to the flowchart, and we're going to go through this one by one. Now, all of a sudden, we could have a fully functioning lead generation system, which is across multiple different channels. This is so freaking cool. This is what I use for my business, and I can't tell you how freaking insanely powerful, how awesome this kind of stuff is, especially when it just works out of the box 100% of the time. So let's go through this one by one. The first one I want to touch on here is Bark.com. What Bark.com is it's a lead generation platform. So you can purchase leads on Bark.com. So this, if I type in plumbing here, for example, it's going to be able to pull up plumbers, right? And there's lots of different services. You could put in a postal code as well. Essentially, you can buy leads here, and you could automatically tie these leads into your CRM. In fact, you could tie in all of these marketing channels into your CRM. So in 1 second or 5 seconds or whatever, after somebody fills out one of the, it becomes a lead in one of these platforms, you can automatically add that person into your CRM through automation, okay? Next one here is SEO, $5,000. Essentially with SEO, same kind of deal here. We're going to be generating blog posts. Now, this does look intimidating. It looks really scary to build this out. Cool thing is that once it's built for every client, essentially, more or less. Obviously, you're going to tweak a couple things, but it's not like you're starting from the ground up. And so this is kind of what it looks like. You can generate blog posts that are styled properly, that have headers, or titles, should I say, pictures, you have the text, you have internal links, external links, you have SEO optimized. All of that freaking kind of stuff is going to be located in here. And this is something that you can sell to clients. This is a great long-term strategy. In the short term, it's not something that's going to generate a whole ton of leads, but long-term, you certainly could generate a stable stream of leads coming through that. And then you could double down and integrate it through social media as well, so that when you publish a blog post like this, you could also add it to a workflow like this, where essentially, and this is just one example of doing this, where when a blog post is published over here, then you reformat using AI over here and over here. You reformat that content for Facebook and for Instagram and for X and for Tumblr, except I don't really know anyone who actually uses Tumblr anymore, and Pinterest and LinkedIn and all that kind of stuff, right? And so that's a great system that you could sell as well for $3,000. And now, there's a couple of things that I want to point out here where it's not just these systems, but this information here is crucial. You're getting leads from multiple different sources, A. B, that you're going to be tracking these. So why that's important is because it's great to have leads coming from multiple different sources, but ultimately speaking, one of the most powerful things you can offer a company is the ability to also track which lead source is performing the best. Because if you were to know, for example, cold outreach performs twice as well as Bark or social media and SEO. And when I mean twice as well, here I mean that cost per acquisition of a client is half as much as all of these. So maybe it's $10 to acquire a customer here, but it's $50 here and $20 and $30 here. Then it's probably worth doubling down. And one of the only ways you're going to know that is through rigorously tracking analytics. If you track things properly here, you're going to have that data automatically for your clients. And so that's a really, really powerful build that you can add on to your client, your client's project. And this is something we'll be talking about later on in this video as well. And so, yeah, there's just lots of different opportunities here in order to generate leads. Now, moving past this, what I want to talk about next is, of course, when you get these leads, for example, through SEO, through social media, through Bark, you want to tag them. And in some of these instances, like SEO and Bark, you're going to want to create custom forms. So again, if I kind of come back to my website here, every single one of these forms should probably be slightly different. And the reason why is because you want a form for SEO or a form for Google Ads or a form for social media so that you can track it properly. And when somebody fills out that form, just like before, you're going to automatically send them an email, text, and give them a call. So this is very similar. But to add one step further, what you could do is add on a RAG system. Now, what a RAG system is it's essentially a workflow that it's a chatbot that can reply back to customers on your behalf. It's trained on every piece of information in your company, all your contracts, your invoices, all your standard operating procedures, everything. And then it takes that information and the chatbot will ask it a question like, hey, what's the pricing? And it'll be like, well, your pricing is actually this because this is what you charge in your invoices. It'll send that to the chatbot. Chatbot will reply with a really accurate question. It's kind of like training an employee. It's like you need to teach them the right things to say on a call. Similarly, you train the chatbot what to say on when communicating with people, and it gives consistently good answers every single time. This is a big win for a lot of customers. And so with that being said, even just without the RAG system, $2,000, I didn't even include the RAG system in here, but the RAG system, you could easily charge like an extra $5,000 on top of that. Next, past that, sales call automation, same kind of stuff as before. The only two things that I want to add in here is that, first of all, we can add in a way more complicated quote process here. So take a look at this. This is something that I use. This saves me $60,000 every single year. This one workflow here. What this does is it generates contracts and invoices, but not just any contracts and invoices, but incredibly complicated, complex contracts and invoices. This saves me 30 minutes every time I do it. Saves my employees 30 minutes every time they do it. And so it's really powerful stuff. And this is what clients want to pay for. This is something that's kind of boring to do. And because it's boring, people don't want to do it. And so they're willing to buy a solution that allows them not to do it anymore. And so this is something that's fantastic to sell to people, and I'd highly recommend it. At a minimum, again, it's a couple $1,000s to build that out. You could also add in lead magnets dripping over time. So for instance, after a sales call, one of the things that happens the most is that when you finish the sales call and you talk to that client, everything goes well. And then maybe like 7 days pass. And then after 7 days, this person, which is the client, kind of forgets that you exist potentially. And then maybe they go with your competitor down here, right? But if you are consistently sending them off emails every single day, or not every day, but like at a tasteful cadence, you can all of a sudden be at the top of their minds right over here, so that when it comes time for them to make a decision, they're thinking about you and they go with you. And so that's a really powerful system as well that I'd recommend rolling out. And then past that, of course, we have appointments, which was already included, and then contract signed, which was already included, and then contract paid. This is where somebody becomes a customer. Okay. And so now they've paid and they've signed the agreement here. They went ahead and they took care of that. Past that, we can kind of go into the onboarding project management side of things here. So typically speaking, when somebody has gone ahead, they paid and signed, you probably don't have all of the information you need at the very beginning. And so what likely you'll want to do is get more information. Now, a lot of businesses will schedule a call. A lot of businesses will go through, spend a couple hours doing this, but I feel like most of this stuff could just be 100% automated. I'll show you how I do it and how I get my clients to do it. So essentially what we do is we send off planning forms just like this. This is an example of planning forms that I built for my last company. And in this, you can go ahead, send it off to a client, and they can just fill out the questionnaire at their own convenience. The cool thing, just as a bonus that I like about this, is it's kind of like an airport check-in system where it's like there's just so many upsells where you can just add on, another sale and another sale and another sale. And the reason why is because a lot of the times, if you don't even put products in front of customers, they're not going to buy it. Just by putting these products in front of people, you could charge way more. And so this is something that people will, and clients will pay for as well if you can build solutions out like that for them. Cool. So past that, onboarding, really, really critical, right? You can collect passwords. You could collect all the important data that you need to. You could build out a system where all of a sudden you're removing somebody from having to do that. You're also removing these people from having to follow up with clients to get the information. Because realistically, if I send over a client this onboarding form, there's a very small chance, like very, very small, sub 20%, that they're actually going to fill it out the first time. So you have to follow up with them. And those are automated messages that you can send out automatically so that you don't have to follow up with them, or your clients don't have to either. Next thing is project management systems. So of course you could create automated systems so that as soon as the contract's paid and signed, you create a project management system for your team to be able to go in and complete the project. So of course, a couple of things about this, you could add in deadlines for all the tasks, you could add in priorities, the team member it's assigned to, notifications, all of that kind of good stuff. $3,000 for that. $2,500 for the onboarding. And let's move on to the next thing here, which is the contract complete. Essentially, with the contract complete, maybe you want to send off an invoice. So maybe, for instance, this initial invoice was for a deposit, which is what we usually do. And I find a lot of businesses do that. But you could also automatically generate the second invoice and then send that off. Typically with this stuff, I generate it. I don't send it automatically just because if you're dealing with money, it's good to always do a once over before you send something off that's either way too much or way too little, or so that you avoid mistakes from happening in the first place. And then, apart from that, there's, just to kind of wrap up here, you could automate the whole process of revisions. So if revisions come in, you could automate that. And you could also automate reviews as well. So this is kind of how I automate reviews. Essentially, what we'll do is we'll send off a feedback form to people, and they have to put in 4 or 5 stars down here. And only if they do that, then we ask them, hey, I'm glad you had a good experience with us. Can you leave a review on Google? And they'll usually go ahead and do that. And this is really powerful stuff because most businesses do not follow up with people to leave reviews. And most people don't leave good reviews. They only leave bad reviews, right? So it's really good to get good reviews. And it's a lot of missed opportunities. Obviously, the more reviews you have, the more your trust goes up in the eyes of your future clients. And that can close more deals, lead to more money. So this is really important stuff. And this can be 100% automated as well. And so with this system, this is like automating the entire really customer lifecycle journey of working at a particular, of somebody going through a service-based business, lead generation, sales, and then fulfillment. And then we could even take it a step further. For $50,000, we could build out an analytic dashboard for $5,000, which takes data in real time from all of these steps here. You could track things like, for instance, the sales analytics here. You can see like what the revenue is, how many quotes were being sent out, how many deals were made, what the call conversion rate, what the lead conversion rate, all this kind of stuff. You could track that, right? You could sell that to clients. This is such a powerful system to build out for people. Past that, you could automate accounting. So you could automate, of course, loading data into QuickBooks. So when somebody goes ahead and pays and signs this contract, that data could be automatically sent to QuickBooks for accounting purposes. That's easily $5,000. Another $5,000 item here is recruitment. This is something that saves people hours every single day. You're essentially replacing a full-time or 2 full-time people by building out systems like this. Like you can see here that I'm hiring thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people. And so having a system to automate this saves obviously a lot of freaking time. I'm still scrolling here. I'm just going to give up. But essentially you can track the whole journey that somebody would take through the recruitment process, all the way from applying on Indeed. And by the way, you can automate pretty much everything here. And you can get them all the way from filling out an application to interviews to onboarding and sending off contracts and all that kind of stuff. So really powerful stuff. And then one other thing that I wanted to throw in here for $10,000, which is a bonus, which is also super easy to build, is custom web applications. And you don't need to know a single line of code. Let me show you how this works. Essentially, you can go over to something called Lovable, and you can vibe code using natural language. So you just plug in here what you want to say. Create me a web app for social media posts, and it will go ahead and generate that for you. Really cool stuff. Here's an example of something that I coded for my business, which was a quote form, or a quote page. So when somebody filled out a form on our website here, we'd automatically send them over something like this, so they could see our portfolio, our pricing, our difference, and all of that kind of stuff, all the information related to us. And so why that's important is because if you can build out these custom web apps, it increases your professionalism. It just increases your conversion rate overall and leads to more money generated. But this usually is out of the question for most businesses, because they just can't afford, like a small service-based business can't usually afford web developers to go in and do stuff. But with the rise of no-code coding tools, you certainly can bring these software tools and functionality into businesses. So I think it's really cool. That's kind of a high-level overview of a $50,000 build. It's actually technically a bit more than $50,000, but this is the kind of stuff that you could go in and build for people. This is stuff that I get people asking for all the freaking time. It's not it's very normal. This is what almost every single service-based business would want, and that is what you can sell for $50,000. That is how you can upsell people, and how you can go from $1 to $5K to $50,000. Thank you guys so much if you made it through this video. If you haven't subscribed to the channel and you found value in this content, please do me a favor and do that if you did find value in this, just because I'm sure if you did, you'll like the other videos I'm releasing in the future as well. And as always, if you guys haven't done so already, I highly recommend taking a look at my school community over here, which I launched a couple months ago. The goal is twofold. There's two reasons why you join this community, and they're both right here. The first one is that you want to automate your business. Now, there's a lot of 6, 7, and 8-figure business owners coming in here, and they're doing everything manually right now, and that is obvious. That obviously sucks, and they want to win back time. So I help people automate 80% plus of their business, or at least up to 80% plus. And the reason I can say that is because for me, I automated myself out of a job, right? Because I automated everything in my business. And then the other reason why you join is because you want to create an AI automation agency. And I'll give you a proven roadmap on how you can find more clients than you know to handle on pretty much day one. So that's essentially it, guys. Thank you once again for watching. I hope you have a lovely day, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video. Thanks, and bye-bye.